Hi, I'm Peter Hoover, and today I want to talk about something that seems to be a residual issue with a lot of people who vote in this country. And that goes back to the election of 2000, the contested election between George Bush and Al Gore. You know, a lot of people shoot off their mouths not understanding one iota about the Constitution and how we elect our president. The president, let's make sure you understand this, the president is not elected by the people. They are not elected by the popular vote, like our representatives and senators are. In fact, there was a time when senators weren't even elected by the popular vote. That changed with one of the amendments in the Constitution. They were elected by the state legislatures, and only the representatives in the House of Representatives were elected by the people. That was it. The president is elected by the electors of the Electoral College. And yes, when you do vote for the president, you vote for the electors. Here's how a person can win the presidency of the United States with a minority of the popular vote and a majority of the electoral vote. Here's how it happens. In most of the states in the Union, when you vote for the president, you vote for the electors. There are so many electors that have committed themselves to the Republican candidate. There are so many electors who have voted themselves to the Democratic candidate. Maybe there's a third party running. There's an elector or two who's committed to a third candidate. Now, what happens is, in most of the states of the Union, I think New Mexico is one of the ones that doesn't apply here, but in most of the states, what happens is that when a candidate gets the majority of the vote in that one state, for instance, let's take my state of Georgia. If, for instance, Bush got 1% of the electoral vote in Georgia, he gets all the electoral votes, including the ones committed for. He gets them all, and they all go to him, and they all vote for him. They have to. They're committed. I mean, that's the way it works. So, you know, the electoral college is obligated to vote for the candidate that the majority of the people in the state voted for. Of course, you have states of differing populations. You have a light state like New Mexico that doesn't have much of an impact population-wise or by the popular vote. You know, they still get a say because their electors can go to or to Bush. And in that state, they actually, I believe, they split their votes. So if 51% of the votes went to Bush, then 51% of the electors will vote for Bush. The other 49% would vote for Gore. But that's not true in most states. So that's how you get a situation where the popular vote can be less than what the Electoral College is. Okay. Now, this was not the first presidential election that was ever contested. It was never the first president. Let's take the election of 1870s. It was one of the most disputed presidential elections in American history. Samuel J. Tilden of New York outpolled Ohio's Rutherford B. Hayes in the popular vote and had 184 electoral votes to Hayes' 160 votes uncounted. These 20 electoral votes were in dispute in 3 states, Florida, go figure, Louisiana, and South Carolina. Each party reported its candidate had won the state, while in Oregon, one elector was declared illegal and replaced. The 20 disputed electoral votes were ultimately awarded to Hayes after a bitter legal and political battle, giving him the victory. Now, many historians believe that an informal deal was struck to resolve the dispute. The Compromise of 1877 was the issue at hand here, and in return for the Democrats' acquiescence in Hayes' election, the Republicans agreed to withdraw federal troops from the South, essentially ending Reconstruction. The compromise effectively ceded power to the southern states and to the Democratic Redeemers. Okay, this was a classic example of you know, the Constitution probably not working. I'm not saying there hasn't been crooked deals before. There have been. But let's go back to June 14th, 1876, when the 6th Republican National Convention assembled. It appeared that James G. Blaine would be the nominee. And on the first ballot, Blaine was just 100 votes away from a majority. His vote began to slide after the second ballot, as many Republicans feared that Blaine could not win the general election. Anti-Blaine delegates could not agree on a candidate until Blaine's total rose to 41% on the 6th ballot. Leaders of the Reformed Republicans met privately and considered alternatives. The choice was Ohio's Reform Governor Rutherford B. Hayes. On the 7th ballot, Hayes was nominated with 384 votes to 351 for Blaine and 21 for Benjamin Bristow. William Wheeler was nominated for vice president by a much larger margin, 366 votes to 89 votes, over his chief rival, Frederick T. Frelinghuysen, who later served as a member of the Electoral Commission. Now, that was a contested election, and it's going to happen in the future, no doubt. Again, but the issue I'm trying to make here is constitutional processes were followed. I'm not sure the deal striking with the Compromise of 1877 was constitutional, but it was an agreement that was struck and for which the people then representatives then voted for the president, and that's what happens. That's what happens. It can go back. Any presidential election can go back to Congress to be voted on by the representatives. In the case of 2000, it never had to. It was dealt with by the Supreme Court. The bottom line is that was just one example of an election being contested. Another election that was contested was in 1824 with John Quincy Adams, and I'll talk about that the next time that we get together. But that's my thought for today, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and have a good day. If you have any questions, you know where to email me.